Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Permanent Values, Part 12, Forces of Nature, and it is a permanent value. It becomes a permanent value once we look at the way these forces of nature should be utilized in our world. These are the references, and I have added one slide from the life in the hereafter at the end, and I think that is something which will nicely conclude today's presentation. And this is our contact. Setting the scene for this talk. We are born into a physical world which has all the means of sustenance for us from birth to death. These means of sustenance are kept there for the use of every child whom we bring into this life through a biological process. I put down this line just to remind ourselves that a child comes into this life through a biological process. And as we shared that the purpose of human creation according to the Quran, we saw that we have to grow out of this biological relationship. And those who bring these children into this world are responsible for catering for their needs adequately as responsible human beings. So this will also form part of our education and training under the system of Deen. But while the system of Deen is not yet established, we should pass it on to our children, that once they get married, they should look into these aspects before raising their family. However, what we witness in the world of 2025 is a grossly inequitable distribution of these means of sustenance. Since the world is being organized and managed by the purely human intellect alone, those in power wield their authority through the means of laws devised by men themselves. And that is the dilemma we face, that human beings do not have the authority according to the Quran to make laws for other human beings. And as a result of making these laws by these human beings, the freedom is taken away of the most of the mankind. Part of the manifestation of this control is based on the discovery and harnessing of the forces of nature. And we will look into this aspect today. It is therefore essential to examine this aspect of control of the forces of nature in the light of the Quran. The question we need to keep asking is, have we got the best out of our physical and cognitive domains during this finite stay of ours in this life? Because as we explore these forces of nature and bring them under our use, we will see that we only are using part of our intellect. The part which is related to the permanent values is escaping our perception, and we are not looking into that aspect. As a result, we are creating chaos and imbalance in the world. The Quran has declared for our guidance that وَلَوْ أَنَّمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ مِنْ شَجَرَاتٍ أَقْلَامٌ وَالْبَحْرُ يَمُدُّهُ مِنْ بَعْدِهِ سَبْعَةُ أَبْحُرٍ Ma nafidat kalimatullahi innallaha azizun hakim. And I have highlighted Azizun Hakim over here. And if all the trees on the earth were pens and the ocean, that is, if these were ink, with 7 oceans behind it to add to it, yet would not the words of Allah be exhausted, for Allah is Aziz and Hakim. So this verse is pointing to one fact, that there is a lot more for human beings in this world to discover. And of course, the life continues beyond death as well. So if we become Aziz and Hakim, that is, we start displaying these two attributes in our personality, of course, within the confines of human limits, then we will see that how our consciousness expands and how we come to terms with our own life and its purpose. Further elaboration. As we know, the system of Deen has 2 aspects, i.e. the physical or materialistic side of society and the aspect of human self-development. The forces of nature as a permanent value will involve study of the laws of nature, their application to the natural resources and the means of sustenance, research and development into all the aspects, distribution of the accrued benefits through society as per the laws based on the permanent values, education and training, close scrutiny via continuous monitoring and evaluation. So all these aspects I put down, and we can add more if these come to our mind as we go through the Quran. A number of laws and forces of nature are under the use of man-made systems in the world of 2025, but the benefits drawn from these are not spread across the board for the good of the whole of mankind. And we looked at aesthetic sense as a value because human beings are not really enjoying their being human in this world. They are not very happy through their mutual relationships, and particularly those in power. So as a result, we do not share these benefits with each other happily. This absence of balance and equitable distribution has come under our scrutiny in previous talks, and we will look at some further aspects today. This aspect as a permanent value should form an important part of our understanding as students of the system of Deen. Our self-development is only possible if we have a healthy physical body, and as part of this process of living our life, we aim at establishing the system of Deen by working with others who have a similar lofty aim of life. Using just the forces of nature and all the benefits which are coming out of these discoveries and their application just for individual benefits or for the benefits of few in the world is creating all these problems. And the Quran is pointing to this aspect, that these should be distributed for the good of everyone. Now, this is the 39th permanent value which we are going through, forces of nature, a permanent value. In the following verse, the Quran informs us that وَسَخَّرَ لَكُم مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ جَمِيعًا مِنْهُ إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. I've highlighted lakum, where the Quran is addressing us, and addressing us means to our cognitive potentials, that is to our thought process, because we are rational beings. And of course, we have choice and intent. So Quran is saying over here is that you have a choice to bring all that is Jami'an minhu. There is nothing left out. And this is a very important aspect, which when I looked at, and it becomes very revealing, and I'll just come to it. Inna fi zalika la'ayatin liqawmin yatafakkarun, for those people who are prepared to use their cognitive functions to their extremities to figure out what is the purpose of their creation and why this whole planet is placed at their disposal. And the translation is, and he has made subservient to you whatsoever is in the heavens, that is highs, and whatsoever is in the earth, that is lows, all from himself. Now over here, there are two things, samawat wa ma fil earth, that is in the heavens and the earth. That is, the earth, we know what kind of forces of nature are present, and a lot of these have been discovered and being utilized by mankind. But what about heavens? The Quran has pointed to that. And over here, if we look into it, in my view, there is implicit in it the life of the hereafter. And what Quran is telling us is that everything which is in the visible and invisible universe is placed at the disposal of man. And since the life is going to go beyond death, so a lot of it is going to be discovered later on once we go on to the next plane of our existence. So that is something which we should keep in mind, because that is why in the previous verse which I quoted, where Quran says, if the all trees had become pens and all oceans had become ink, even then Allah's things, Allah's matters, Allah's word will not be completed, and you will keep writing whatever Allah has produced for his creation. So human beings have tremendous importance in this creation. So that is how we should look at our own creation and never be satisfied with the status quo, that I have discovered enough and I don't need to use my mind anymore. The Quran demands from us to subdue and harness the forces of nature with the sole object of utilizing them in consonance with the permanent values for the benefit of the entirety of humanity, and never for destructive purposes. For the basic principle underlying this is only that survives in the earth which is beneficial for entire mankind. We have gone through this verse under Surah Ra'd in detail. The Quran does not ignore or neglect, rather, it lays great emphasis on meeting the demands of man's physical existence and the satisfaction of his requirements for his ease and comforts. Of course, with close observance of the permanent values. If both the needs of his physical life and other requirements are satisfied in harmony and accordance with the permanent values, then no difficulty or problem as such arises. When there is a tie or an apprehension of a clash between the two, the Islamic view of life will then, as a matter of course, give preference to the maintenance of and compliance with the permanent values, for therein lies the loftiness of the human character. So even thinking like that also raises our own eminence, and we understand those things which were hidden in front of our eyes or from our mind before coming to the Quran. Next slide is, this way of life greatly contributes to the development and well-being of the human self. If the material concept of life, on the other hand, the be-all and end-all of the entire human effort and activity is merely the satisfaction of the physical wants in luxury and plenitude without the least notion of the permanent values playing any role. So we should look at it that what is a typical day in the life of those who are not following the Quran and those who are following the Quran. Their rational thinking will be totally different, because one knows about the permanent values and tries to remain within those permanent values, being aware of it, while the other has no other purpose of life except to go through the physical side of it. This attitude is abhorrent to Islam, that is based on the pure Quran. Far from the agreeing to accept it, Islam will in no circumstances even compromise with the material concept. Moreover, the otherworldly view of religion, preaching contempt of worldly life and its enjoyment and ignoring physical wants, is equally unacceptable and hateful in its eyes. And this is another important point, that if we look into the religious world, they become satisfied very quickly. And because they believe in some kind of fatalism, they leave it to their concept of God. Whereas Quran is placing full responsibility on us, and under the law of requital, asking us to get the maximum out of it. And how to get the maximum out of it? Because Quran tells us that just don't consider yourself as physical beings. You are more than that. The combination of body and intellect is a very unique combination in the universe, and with choice and intent, it becomes very powerful. We will look at it in more detail slightly later. In the world of 2025, we witness that those nations which have harnessed the forces of nature have acquired greater economic and military power, and on this basis have established the capitalist system which subjugates weaker nations and peoples. I've only put down capitalist system over here because at present this is the only system in the world, but communist system and socialist system, again created by human beings, are not very dissimilar. The relative values which dominate are might is right and the end justify the means, and both these values being practiced in the world of today. The Quran has pointed to this aspect in many verses and asked the Jamaat Momineen to remain vigilant regarding it. For achieving this aim, Quran says, Kuntum khaira ummatin ukhrijat linnase ta'muruna bil ma'rufi wa tanhauna anil munkari wa tu'minuna billah. So Quran is asking us to come together using the Quranic guidance, unite our hearts, and then create an ummah, create a Jamaat Momineen, which takes birth out of any period of history. It doesn't make any difference when this happens, but it should happen if people come together. And what is their job is, you are the best of ummahs, arisen for mankind, enjoining what is good, forbidding what is wrong, and having iman in Allah. So there is a very lofty aim before us on this platform. We have to follow this guidance, firstly, of course, to acquire iman ourselves, do salih deeds, and then by coming together, then work together towards raising the eminence and loftiness of our own individual selves as well as the collective efforts on this path. Next is related to this is the meaning of fitrat, because forces of nature means that is there is a question of fitrat as well, that is a nature comes into it. And we will look at the meaning of this term. Now fitrat, and this is the root of it, though the basic meaning of this root is to tear asunder, to tear apart, dig or to make, its fundamental condition is that this task is being carried out for the first time. And this is interesting, that something which is being carried out first time. We discover these forces for the first time. These were already present over there. But because of our needs, we go for discovering these through research and development. Hence, the meaning of Fatara will be that he did this task for the first time. So even coming to the Quran, if somebody is looking for guidance, will be coming for the first time and then discovering his own self. From this respect, Allah has been declared to be Fatir samawati wal ard, he who created the universe for the first time. In another place, it is called Badi samawati wal ard. Again, Badi is from Ibtada, that is, he has initiated it. And there is a very interesting implicit point over here for our thinking, that when Quran says that Allah has created it from nothing, we should keep in mind that Allah has always been there. So over here, Quran is pointing to this visible universe in which we exist. And only Allah knows that how many other universes exist in this vast space which we call universe. And human mind being finite, particularly at this stage of our existence, we will find it very hard to conceive it because we are confined to time and space. But hopefully once we go to the next stage of our life, all these things will become gradually evident on us. From this respect, Fitrat Allah will mean that law of creation of Allah, according to which He brought the things and man of the universe into existence. So all of these things, Quran says, were brought into existence from nothing. And this is a mystery for scientists, because since they do not come to the Quran, they do not know the attributes of Allah. Hence, they always keep guessing that how did the universe begin, according to which He created these. But among us, the word fitrat is used in the meaning of nature, and it is meant to be that characteristic of a thing which cannot be changed, which is immutable, i.e. such a trait which is linked to the identity of this thing. For example, the nature of fire is to provide heat or burn, or a goat is vegetarian, or water will flow downhill. Hence, fitrat is that of constrained things for the one who possesses choice and intent. There can be no fitrat of his. In these meanings, neither Allah can have fitrat nor man. And this is important because sometimes people in the religious domain say that Islam is the religion of fitrat. And that is wrong, because man has no fitrat, he's got choice and intent. And it's a great attribute given to man only if we understand it using the Quranic light. The laws of nature and their significance. Man has figured out through experience and experimentation over a period of centuries that there are laws working in the physical domain and has drawn immense benefit from these discoveries. The modern sciences deal with many aspects of these laws. We will highlight some of these here and then look at some of the verses of the Quran which also draw our attention to this side of worldly life. This permanent value also presented a big challenge, that how to put it together. And over here, what I've done is that I've pointed to some of the laws which exist in our world of science today. The law of gravity, which is functioning in the visible universe, is making life possible on planet Earth. Knowledge of this law has made it possible, for example, to explore the sciences relating to space. The harnessing of sunshine has made it possible to draw benefits from its light and heat. For example, the benefits of solar energy and agriculture. And there's a lot more to it, which we can Google. Areas of the earth where there are stronger winds has facilitated the use of wind farms to produce electricity. And this is just one aspect of it. There is research going on to produce energy from ocean waves. In fact, there are some prototypes which are being in use, and they are trying to see whether these are economically viable or not. The extraction of fossil fuels in the last century or so has changed the face of the earth, and man's unbridled intellect has created many conveniences of life, and this process is continuing 24/7. And we also know in the 19th century about steam engines. However, this has also given rise to immense problems on the face of the earth as a result of the unbalanced and fragmented approach to its utilization. So wherever there are relative values, man creates problems. If these are brought within the domain of the permanent values, we will see that peace will return to the earth. More examples of the laws of nature. Newton's law of motion and gravitation, which describe the relationship between forces, mass, acceleration, and gravity. So Newton discovered it. Einstein's theory of relativity, which explains the effects of gravity, speed, and time in space and matter. And we also know about his famous equation, E is equal to mc squared. Boyle's law of gases, which states that the pressure and volume of a gas are inversely proportional at a constant temperature. Conservation laws, which state that certain quantities such as energy, momentum, and charge are conserved in a closed system. The four laws of thermodynamics, which describe the behavior of heat, entropy, and work in a system. Ohm's law, which states that the current through a conductor is proportional to the voltage across it. Coulomb's law, which states that the force between two electric charges is proportional to the product of their charges and inversely proportional to the square of their distance. Stephen's law, which states that the total radiation emitted by a black body is proportional to the fourth power of its temperature. Something more on these laws. Pascal's law, which states that the pressure exerted by a fluid at any point is transmitted equally in all directions. Hooke's law, which states that the force needed to stretch or compress a spring is proportional to the displacement from its equilibrium position. Archimedes' principle, very famous principle regarding this floating of bodies on water, which states that a body immersed in a fluid experiences a buoyant force equal to the weight of the fluid displaced by it. Avogadro's law, which states that equal volumes of gases at the same temperature and pressure contain the same number of molecules. Natural laws include the four fundamental forces, and these are gravitation force, electromagnetic force, strong nuclear force, and weak nuclear force. Gravitation force, attraction between masses. Electromagnetic force is interaction between charged particles. Strong nuclear force holds atomic nuclei together. Weak nuclear forces responsible for certain types of radioactive decay. And we should keep in mind that all of these laws, of course, those who discovered them, these are given the name by these individuals. But these were always there, and human beings took time to discover all these laws and draw benefits out of it by designing their machines and instruments based on these laws. And these are taken from Google search. Harm caused by ignoring the permanent values. The Quran has drawn our attention to the state of those nations which only rely on material achievements and neglect the moral laws. أَفَلَمْ يَسِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ فَيَنْظُرُوا كَيْفَ كَانَ عَاقِبَةُ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ كَانُوا أَكْثَرَ مِنْهُمْ وَأَشَدَّ قُوَّةً وَآثَارًا فِي الْأَرْضِ فَمَا أَغْنَى عَنْهُمْ مَا كَانُوا يَكْسِبُونَ. Do they not travel through the earth and see what was the end of those before them? They were more numerous than these and superior in strength, and in the traces in the land, yet all that they accomplished was of no profit to them. And this is very interesting because Quran says at that time when it was revealed that there were people who were far more powerful than yourself, and they all disappeared because they did not stick to the laws of Allah. They created man-made systems which are bound to fail at some point in the future. So this is what Quran is telling us, and this is very encouraging for us as students of the Quran, that the existing systems which we see in the world of 2025 are bound to decline at some point. So the important is that the alternative system of deen should start taking shape somewhere in some land on the planet Earth. This essentially means that while harnessing the forces of nature is important, this needs to be pursued within the guidance provided by the Quran. Otherwise, human beings become distracted by temporary material success and become trapped within the net of their unbridled intellect and desires. The ill effects of their so-called successes and prosperities catch up with them after a short period of respite. So while we are using all these technologies, for example, our smartphones and driving our cars and all the gadgets around us and conveniences, we should always keep in mind that all these are only of value when these are used within the permanent values, and that is only possible within the system of deen. Because while these might be available to some of us, being the beneficiaries of the man-made systems, most of the mankind does not have access to these conveniences, and which creates ugliness in the world, and which is against the aesthetic sense as a permanent value, which we had gone through previously. The Quran points to this, وَكَمْ قَسَمْنَا مِنْ قَرْيَةٍ كَانَتْ ظَالِمَةً وَأَنْشَأْنَا بَعْدَهَا قَوْمًا آخَرِينَ. How many were the populations we utterly destroyed because of their iniquities, which Quran calls as zulm, setting up in their place other peoples. So this is the beautiful law of Allah, that is the law of rise and fall of nations, or law of replacement of nations, that all those systems which are based on injustice are bound to be replaced by another system, and our effort should be to replace these systems. In fact, if we look at it very closely, as the Jamaat Momineen takes shape, all these systems, they quicken in pace. These start going down more rapidly, because this is the way the law of requital functions, and we will look into it at some point in the future. This transition is taking place in front of our eyes in the world of 2025. Next verse is, Momineen need to look at it holistically. So we should not look at it in a fragmented way, in pieces, because if we look at the pieces, we think this is the reality, whereas reality has to be looked at holistically in the light of these permanent values. The list of the laws of nature is long. However, its structure is raised on two fundamental principles, the law of uniformity of nature, the law of cause and effect. And the law of uniformity of nature means that wherever in the universe we are, these laws will remain the same. These will not change. For example, if we are on Mars or we are beyond in some other galaxy which is not visible to us at this point in time. And second is the law of cause and effect. As we have studied previously, that the first cause of the creation of the universe is Allah himself. That is his law of creating from nothing. But once we know that things have come into shape, then cause and effect starts taking its shape. It becomes effective, and we can study it and figure it out ourselves. It should be kept in mind that obedience of the laws of nature is also obedience to the laws of Allah. But this divine obedience is incomplete without the guidance of Wahi. And this is a beautiful statement over here in the light of the Quran, that if we are following just physical laws, then this is only part of the obedience. The overall thing which should come to our mind is, what is the purpose? What is the purpose of our creation, and why these laws are there, and are these being utilized for the good of everyone? It is complete when, after obeying the laws of nature, by harnessing the forces of nature, these are utilized according to the laws bestowed by the Quran. So we can see even up to this point that forces of nature are there to help us to multiply our own potentials, to bring out all the best which is kept within us. In this way, man's worldly life becomes balanced, and also his future, i.e. the life of the hereafter. Through obedience of the laws of nature, the benefits of this life can be achieved, but life at a human level does not succeed. Hence, Islam is the name of harnessing the forces of nature and bringing these into use according to the permanent values of the Quran. And we can see from here as well that if there are laws working everywhere over here, how can we die and then just disappear? That is simply not possible. That such a superior creation of Allah with choice and intent, and whatever they are doing, they will just go to waste. Simply not possible, because everything which Allah creates has a utility value. If one of these constituents is lost, then that life cannot be declared to be Islamic. Forces of nature, some verses related to Momineen. Everything in the universe is obeying the laws of Allah, and I have quoted here a verse from Surah Al-Imran, أَفَغَيْرَ دِينِ اللَّهِ يَبْغُونَ وَلَهُ أَسْلَمَ مَنْ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ طَوْعًا وَكَرْهًا وَعَلَيْهِ يُرْجَعُونَ. Do they seek for other than the deen of Allah, while all creatures in the highs and lows of the universe have willing or unwilling bowed to his will, and to him shall they return. And alayhi yarji'un means over here is that everything follows Allah's laws. It goes back to Allah and decides its fate according to his law. Tawan karhan means that whether they like it or not, they are following these laws. And this question can come to our mind that presently under the man-made system, as if they are not following Allah's laws, they are following Allah's laws, because all the disobedience which is taking place is creating those effects which are also noted in the Quran. Because Quran says if you go against his laws, there is going to be chaos, conflicts, wars, bloodshed, and fasad on the planet Earth. And that is taking place right in front of us. So according to this verse, everything is evidence-based. The physical part of the creation is linked to the purpose of human self-development. And over here, I've quoted this verse, Inna rabbakumullahu allazi khalaqa as-samawati wal arda fi sittatin ayamin summa stawa alal arshi yukshil layla wan nahara yatlubuhu hasisan wa shamsu wal qamara wan najuma musakhkharatin bi amrihi ala lahul khalqu wal amru tabarakallahu rabbul alameen. And over here I have highlighted tabarakallahu rabbul alameen, particularly the word tabarak, and we will look at the root of this term as well. Surely your Rabb is Allah, who created the highs and lows of the universe in 6 phases. Then he established his authority. And this is a beautiful term of the Quran, samawat wal ard. And wherever this comes, we should keep in mind that some of these things will become discovered in this life. But since life at the self level is going to go beyond death, so a lot of these things in samawat will appear before us in the next phase. So it should create some kind of a motivation within us, some incentive that there is a higher purpose of myself, and let me increase my own value using the Quran. Then he established his authority. He draws the night as a veil over the day, each following the other in succession. He created the sun, the moon, and the stars, governed by laws under his command. Is it not his amr and khalq? It is Allah who is sustaining and nourishing, Rabbul Alameen. And over here, Quran has explained this, the two domain of his decision making, the domain of amr and khalq, and we have gone through it previously as well. The universe is created for the sole purpose of innahu yabda'ul khalqa summa yu'iduhu liyajziyal lazina amanu wa amilus salihati bil qist. It is he who begins the process of creation and repeats it, that he may reward with justice those who accept iman and do salih deeds. Now this is a verse which we should remember by heart and keep going through it and keep strengthening our heart on this path. Because Quran is saying that all this is created for what? Amanu wa amilus salihati bil qist. And we know that this term of amanu wa amilus salihati, how important it is. That first accepting iman after rejecting taghut and then doing salih deeds leads to higher eminence, higher loftiness, and of course it culminates in getting power in the land as well. This needs a repeated profound reflection to let its importance sink into our hearts, minds, and memory and become part of ourselves. And this immersion of its importance costs us nothing. It is free. We shouldn't be scared of thinking about these things, because Quran is asking us to think about it. think about the companionship which as students of the Quran we have managed to acquire, and then try to multiply that strength which Iman gives us. So we should not go through these verses just cursorily, but these need a lot of thinking, lot of reflection on a continuous basis, that as a students of the Quran, one is not left alone in the universe and at the mercy of the man-made systems or the system of Pharaoh. Next is some more verses for further reflection. There are signs in the universe. Inna fi khalqis samawati wal ardi wa ikhtilafil layli wan nahari la ayatil li ulul albab. Again, samawat and earth has appeared together. Behold, in the creation of the highs and lows of the universe and in the alternation of night and day, there are indeed signs for men of understanding. So Quran is saying that you will see night and day, and you should look at it that this time has been created for you to count your days, and also remember that your stay in this world is finite, and you should question yourself that within the means available to me, within the man-made system where deen is not yet established, have I managed to bring out my best? Have I manifested all those latent potentials individually and in consonance with others who are already on this path? And this is where Tolu Islam comes into it. Tolu Islam is not there looking for us. We should try to get best out of it, because it is an ideology which is following the system of deen as given in the Quran. So this is a platform where we come together and as students of the Quran and are moving forward. The earth is placed under the control of mankind as a whole. Huwa allazi ja'alakumul arda zalulan famshu fi manakibiha wa kulu min rizqihi wa alayhin nushur. It is He who has made the earth subservient to you. And this is a beautiful thing, that we should feel a lot of pride in that the whole earth has been given to each one of us to look into it, to get the best out of it. You should thus seek the ways to acquire these means of sustenance bestowed for your use. But do not ever think that you have become the sole owners of these and that you can use these the way you like. That is why it is important that we look at the unjust system which is in place in terms of distribution of means of sustenance and create a will within us that if the power comes to us, then we will do what Allah has asked us to do, not mechanically, but out of conviction by bringing out our best. Hence, you need to remember that you have to account for these to Him. Next is, without Iman, we simply cannot possess the requisite vision. قل انظروا ماذا في السماوات والأرض وما تغني الآيات والنذر عن قوم لا يؤمنون. And see again samawat wal ard. So Quran could have said, Allah could have said just earth if we were just physical beings. But since we are far more than just physical beings, so samawat appears as well. Because Quran is pointing to us that don't become satisfied just with these material conveniences of life. There is far more to life than what you think you have. And this is what Quran does. It puts before us our own significance and tells us that there is a lot more to come and it will never end. Say, behold all that is in the highs and lows of the universe, but neither signs nor warners can be of any benefit to those people who will not accept Iman. So Iman is the beginning of understanding our own significance. It is through accepting Iman that the change in our outlook on the higher purpose of life takes place. Now let us go to this next slide where the meaning of the root barak is explained. The real meaning of barakah is to be stable, together with growth and nourishment. A thing is strongly established in its location and is also growing at the same time. Hence, in this concreteness and plentifulness, stability and growth both are included. So it's a very powerful term explaining that how something is established and how the growth and nourishment of it is taking place. Another linguist, Nawab Siddiq Hassan Khan, has noted that words in which ba and ra both appear together, the meaning of manifestation is implicit in them. And this is very important because if we know something about Arabic and go through the Quran, wherever these two terms come together, we can see that what they mean. The meaning of growth is that latent potentials should appear in front through their manifestation. So when Quran says Tabarakallah, we should look at it that how much latent potentials have been kept within us to become established and then grow ourselves. Hence, Baraka encompasses all aspects of stability, strength, abundance, growth, manifestation, and expression. Mubarak or fihi barakatun is stated when an abundance and plentifulness in something is felt and when there is also stability and strength present. So when we next time use this word Mubarak, we should keep these meanings in mind. That does this mean this? The plural of Baraka is Barkat. All these things become available through various means. Hence, metaphorically, these means of khair will also be called Barkat. For example, Barakat are made available, and Quran says, Barakatim minas samai wal arde, abundance of all means of sustenance, divine guidance, and economic conveniences of life. This is in relation to this verse, whose first part is, Walau an ahlal qura amanu wattaqaw la fatahna alayhim. If people accepted Iman and followed Taqwa, the gates of these would have opened on them. This is the first part of the verse. So what Quran is saying is that if you establish the system of Deen, then you will forget about the bounties and blessings and the material benefits of a man-made system. These will keep expanding, and you will see that you will exist at a totally different level of human existence, and which is called truly Jannat on the planet Earth. Now, next word in relation to this is bir. We have gone through this part previously as well, but I repeated it. I thought because these two terms have ba and ra in them, so let us go through it as well. The fundamental meaning of this root is vastness, generosity, and expanse, because it is opposite to bahar, that is water, ocean. The word for dry, that is vast land, is used. And the word used is bari. And Quran says, وَإِذَا مَسَّكُمُ الدُّرُّ فِي الْبَحْرِ دَلَّ مَنْ تَدْعُونَ إِلَىٰ إِيَّهُ فَلَمَّا نَجَّاكُمْ إِلَى الْبَرِّ أَرَدتُّمْ وَكَانَ الْإِنسَانُ كَفُورًا. When distress seizes you at sea, those that you call upon other than him leave you in the lurch. But when he brings you back safe to land, you turn away, displaying kufr. So Quran over here is pointing to a particular human mentality that man starts supplicating when he is in trouble. For example, nowadays in Muslim lands, ordinary people are supplicating a lot about Palestinians in Gaza. But the same people do not pay any attention to yatim and miskin wherever they are living, and particularly the people in power. So these things we should keep in mind, how human psychology is being displayed in the word and how the Quran is pointing to this faulty or evil psychology of human beings. From the point of view of vastness, it has also acquired the meaning of abundance and plentifulness. For example, Abaran al-Qawm means the nation multiplied in great numbers. From this, it began to be used in the meaning of control and supremacy. As noted under the root, and we have gone through this, Barak, the meaning of this root is also to become manifested. From this, the meanings of both vastness and supremacy become clear. So what we look at the root Barak, in which was that it is established and is growing and is displaying its fruits. The vastness also comes into it, and the supremacy also comes into it. From the point of view of vastness of vision and expanse of the heart, the meanings of birrun appear as virtuous dealing on a mega scale, compassionate dealings, and ihsan. And ihsan, we know that wherever there is a deficiency, we fulfill it. Also used in the meaning of sadaqat, that is fulfilling commitments, as well as obedience. Al-Barun is among the divine attributes, and Quran says, Inna kunna min qablu nad'uhu innahu huwal barrur rahim. Truly, we, that is the Momineen, did call unto him in the past. Surely it is he, Al-Barru Al-Rahim. So we can see that different terms of the Quran are pointing to different divine attributes which we are meant to display in our personality. And obviously we cannot display these attributes unless we know about them. And then we have to look for opportunities. Even within the man-made system, a lot of these divine attributes we can display, maybe to a limited extent, but we should be cognizant of this. Further elaboration of the root bir. Thus, the society which acquires the divine attributes will work for the rububiyah of mankind and will possess a generous expansiveness and vastness in outlook. This is called bir. The Quran states, Laisal birra an tawallu wujuhakum qibla al-mashriqi wal-maghribi walakinna al-birra man amana billahi wal yawmil akhir. It is not bir that you turn your face towards east or west, but bir is to accept iman in Allah, the hereafter, and we have gone through this verse a number of times previously as well. So while coming together and doing some practices in order to carry out some kind of a ritual maybe, but Quran is saying that all of this should be within the system of deen. These are not individual things because Quran is pointing to the collective approach towards solving human problems and not to be carried away by some ritualistic practices. The nation which does not have an abundance of the means of sustenance by employing the forces of nature itself, i.e., it needs to acquire these means first, and then if it does not subsequently utilize these for the nourishment and growth of humanity, it cannot be the possessor of bir according to the Quran. In order to reach the state of bir, Quran says, Lan tanalul birra hatta tunfiku mimma tuhibbuna wa ma tunfiku min shay'in fa inna Allaha bihi alim. By no means will you attain bir, that is, you will not understand this vastness and expansiveness and your own strength, unless you give of that which you love. And whatever you give, surely Allah knows it well. And that is the beauty over here. Tunfiku means that you keep it open for the good of everyone. And over here, what I've done is I pointed to some of the aspects. Whatever you love, and we know in the human world, people love wealth, they love their children, progeny, they love power, they love fame, they love status, they love houses, they love cars, conversations. A lot of people like their own voices and they talk a lot. Respect and dignity, clothing, attire, travel, conveniences, all material benefits. And now we have to look at it that to meet this requirement to which the Quran is pointing our attention, wealth, it says keep it open for the good of others, particularly under the system of deen, it says beyond your need. Progeny, bring up those children so that they can be of use to the mankind, not just use to their own family and few people around them. Power, if you acquire power, it should be utilized as Aziz and Hakim, not just Aziz like the dictatorships in the world. And if there is a fame, make use of it to spread the message. If there's a status, then that status, for example, if someone within the man-made system is at a higher position of power, they should utilize it to convey the message rather than keeping quiet. Houses, same applies to that. Cars, the transportation should be utilized also for the good of mankind. Conversations should be very focused, never to waste time, because frustrated conversations particularly affect our own motivation and it slows us down. It creates distractions. Respect and dignity, we have gone through it previously, and rest of all these are meant to be looked at. And these are not something we should just pass through it thinking that these have nothing to do with the system of deen. So all these will come under bir. Direct all efforts towards Ya ayyuhallazina amanu idha tanajitum fala tatanaju bil ithmi wal udwane wa masiyate tir-rasule wa tanaju bil birri wa taqwa. O Jamaat Momineen, when you hold secret counsel, do it not for iniquity and hostility and disobedience to the messenger, but do it for bir and taqwa. And this is the beautiful part of the verse, is that whatever we do, it should be done with a view to acquire bir and taqwa. So it has to be focused. So these things will be worked out within the system of deen, but these can be practiced individually as well within the man-made system. Now next is forces of nature, human body plus intellect create a unique, powerful combination which has changed the face of the planet. Despite possessing an animalistic biological body, human beings have been able to acquire immense power by using their intellectual and creative potentials. In the world of 2025, over and above the technological developments, the weapons of mass destruction have enough power to destroy the human race completely. Just see a human being with a brain and a body. They have been able to create so much destructive power and bring it under their control. Same goes for all the mechanical side of our conveniences, where human beings have created these electric trains and cars and machinery and everything, for example, earth moving machinery. So what I mean is this body and intellect has tremendous potentials. And that should be the focus of our attention as well as we are going through the Quran and progressing towards establishing the system of deen. The emergence of AI has added a new dimension to this immense power of the human intellect and has provided an additional tool for man to either use it for the good of everyone or to employ it to further concentrate power in the hands of a few. The Quran has pointed to the aspects of khair and shar in order to facilitate our ability to make choices in life. Evil shar is that which destroys the human self, while good is that is khair is that which promotes its latent potentials for good towards mankind. Through this differentiation, it has asked us to pay attention to the cognitive side of our existence and bring our body's potentials within our complete control, and not to become lost in hedonistic pleasures, therefore forgetting to create a new life within us. And we have gone through this aspect of creating new life within us in our presentation on the purpose of human creation. By keeping universal death for the physical body, the Quran has left no doubt that our sojourn on the plane of our current existence is finite. That is, our physical life is finite, but we are holder of something which is eternal within us. And if we start to view our life at the level of ourself, that is our I, then using its light, we simply cannot go wrong. Can Word of 2025 meet the basic needs of everyone? What I've done over here is I carried out a search on DeepSeek, which is equivalent of ChatGPT. And there's some interesting information I gathered, and I'm going to share it over here. The result from a search from DeepSeek about basic needs, it says it is food, water, and shelter. Physically, yes, existing resources could meet everyone's basic needs if managed equitably and sustainably. So it says that existing resources, means of sustenance in the world, are enough for everyone. However, political, economic, and systemic barriers prevent this today. The challenge is not scarcity, but organization and justice in resource use. And over here, it has missed one point, that is will to do it. And that will to do it, that choice is provided by the Quran. And there is nothing inbuilt within man to do it. Potential solutions listed are redistributive policies, sustainable practices, technical innovations, waste reduction. For example, cutting food waste alone could feed 2 billion more people. Economic and political barriers listed are inequality. The richest 10% consume 50% of global resources. Why do they do it? And that is the question for the students of the Quran. Find out from the Quran itself. Wealth concentration, not scarcity, is the core issue. Next is trade policies, and it says that trade policies like subsidies, tariffs, and geopolitical conflicts disrupt fair distribution. The third one is infrastructure. Poor storage, transport, and farming techniques in developing nations lead to losses. Human self-development does not appear in this. And this is very interesting that human self-development within the man-made system does not appear anywhere as a priority. Next is forces of nature, illustrating some aspects through pictures. I added this slide today because I was thinking over it that how we should make it a bit more interesting. And over here, before and after, this is the regreening efforts going on in China. And some other countries are also practicing it, but China is doing it on a mega scale. And if we do this Google search, there are a lot many more pictures which we can have a look. And then this is the Archimedes principle, and this liner is proving that human intellect is very powerful and is making use of the laws of nature. And this is an Airbus A380, which carries a significant number of people. And again, it is using the forces of nature. And this is Silicon Valley. I put down the map over here just to point that silicon oxide is found in the sand, and from there, human beings have been able to create a different empire of computing and IT in the world. Wind farm, which produces electricity. And this is hypersonic missiles to kill each other, and it goes at 7,000 miles per hour. And then this is Gaza, which is going on right in front of our eyes, human beings looking for peace. These human beings are looking for peace like us anywhere else in the world, but they are not finding peace at the hands of these other human beings who have unbridled desires. And this is what they do. And they are waiting for Allah's help, and they can't get Allah's help unless there is a Jamaat Momineen. So this puts an emphasis on our efforts on this platform to understand the system and then present ourselves as Momineen to carry out all those duties which Allah wants His companions to do it. So this is something pretty serious. Finally, 3 states of nations in the world. This I have taken from the book, The Life in the Hereafter, What Does the Quran Say? If a nation does not harness the forces of nature according to the physical laws, its worldly life cannot be prosperous. Since it did not harness these forces of nature, the question will not arise regarding the use of these forces according to the permanent values. And this is the state of a lot of nations in the world which call themselves as third world or underdeveloped worlds. Therefore, this nation cannot live its life according to deen. Consequently, this nation's life on this earth will be dark, and its future will be dark as well, because they will be under the servitude of those who are more powerful. And this is just because they have failed to use their rational side of their mind, and they are not observant and looking at other developed nations. In the case of developed nations around them, they have to just copy their technology and do something about it, but they fail to do that as well. However, if among this nation there are individuals who are dissatisfied with this way of life, that is the Taghuti system, and make efforts so that changes can take place in the society within which they would then be able to live their lives according to deen, then for these people, this worldly life will generally be difficult and unsatisfying, but their next life will be prosperous, because they will be developing their self by making efforts and going against the trend, the Taghuti trend in the world. They will be rejecting it and then accepting Iman and working towards the system of Deen. So even if the system of Deen is not established in their life, their efforts will not go wasted, because their self will be developed and they will leave this world with a developed self. The nation which harnesses the forces of nature, even though it does not utilize them within the domain of the permanent values, its present life can be prosperous. However, the later part of the life of its people will be dark. And there are billions of them. We can see them if we use the Quranic light and assess them. They don't have any self which can qualify for the life of the hereafter according to the Quran. But if there are some people in this nation who try to organize life according to the permanent values, the later life of such individuals will be bright. These things can, sometimes people do ask that what about those people who do a lot of good under the man-made system? These things we can only understand if we make an effort of accepting Iman ourselves and then do solid deeds, then work together and acquire new life within us. Then at the level of that new life, we can see around and it will become very evident to us that the new life which we have acquired by using the Quranic light simply cannot be acquired by any other procedure, by any other process, by following any other path. So there are only two paths in life. Either we live life biologically and die biologically without creating new life. And the second path is that we create new life and get onto the path which is called Sirat-e-Mustaqim, and then by uniting our hearts with those who are also on that path, and then proceed on that path by growing out of those biological relationships, because then we can differentiate our previous biological existence and path with the new path which we are following in the light of the Quran. The nation which harnesses the forces of nature and then brings them into use within the domain of the permanent values, its present life will be prosperous and bright, and its later life will also be successful. And these are the efforts which Tolu Islam is making. That is, the people who are on this path and agree with Tolu Islam are making efforts to establish that system of deen. This nation will then possess an Islamic system. However, if some people among this nation are unhappy to live within this system but continue to live under constraint, their later life will be dark. So even under the system of deen, there will be many people who will not accept Iman, and they'll be quite happy to live life without that Iman which is noted in the Quran. That is fine, but their present life under the system of deen will be prosperous and successful. But since they have been unable to create new life within themselves, hence they will have no success in the life of the hereafter. Thanks for your time and for sharing this today. Please feel free to share it with your contacts. You may like to subscribe for future talks related to the Quranic system of deen.